Hey everybody, I don't know about you, but as you've watched out over the world, the war in Russia and Ukraine is not just isolated to Eastern Europe. It's spread all over the world, and you can see it in market instabilities. You can see it here. People who do not think that that war is affecting you, all you got to do is look at gas prices. You look at your food prices. You see the global change that has happened. But you know something that's also affected investments as well. And I've said all along, legacy precious metals is your navigator. They're the ones that see you through to get to the next level. The good news about this is even with market volatility, market instability, you've got options. And gold prices are rising as investors turn to gold. And gold presents a hedge against this inflation and that protects you against the weakening dollar, which we are seeing. Legacy Precious Metals is the only company I trust to deal with gold and silver and the other precious metals. You need this investment. You need this as part of your portfolio to keep you buffered from what we're seeing in the world, war and volatility in the market. This is where you need to be. Call Legacy Precious Metals today. Be proactive about this. Get on board with it. Call them at 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. legacypminvestments.com, your navigator in a volatile world of investments.
Do you want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Collins. Welcome back to the Doug Collins Podcast. As we have always welcomed Chan Gailey to our show. Chan, Coach is here today. We're at the end of the football season. We've just finished up the regular season in college football. We got some conference championship games coming up this weekend. Got still about a month, a little over a month left to go in pro world. So lots to catch up on since we caught up about 7-8 weeks ago now. But lots always to talk about. Chan, it's good to have you back on.
It's great to be with you, Doug, as always. And I look forward to these times where you get away from the other stuff and talk a little football.
Exactly. Well, I get away from the other stuff, and also, I'll be honest, and this is for the listeners out there. We play, that play golf. My golf swing, I hadn't had a chance to work on it, Chan. So we're still out there. All good. All right. Let's just do some interesting, just sort of overviews. You're a coach. You've coached at the college level. You're at the end of the season, and now it's changed up a little bit. I was listening. I had to go to a breakfast meeting today, so I was listening to all the college football pundits. Chan, I have a question for you. Why is it that all of the media, pundits, whatever, are so in love with the idea of the Pac-12, the others, that they just desperately want another team? Is it just because they're so tired of seeing the same ones in that's just what the love affair is with USC and others, even though the conferences do not even come close to some of the others? What's the deal?
Well, the bottom line, as we all know, TV drives the sport. And they have listeners from these pundits, have listeners from all over the country. They want the West Coast people to be involved because it broadens their base, it broadens the TV spectrum, it broadens everything. So they're begging for somebody out west to become a part of this conversation, which we all know. I mean, what happened to Oregon and Georgia early in the year, I'm not sure that would be the case, even though I will say I watched a little bit of USC the other night. That quarterback is a unique player. He and Bryce Young are very similar players.
Very similar, except I think that Caleb's a little bit bigger than Bryce, isn't he?
He might be. I don't know their sizes. They just look like athletes to me that are amazing.
Well, Caleb the other day, look, and again, the whole hype with Lincoln Riley. I mean, the whole deal. But so I've sort of downplayed USC a little bit. But Caleb came from Oklahoma. But watching him like you did the other night, when he went all the way right, came back, then backed up, then went around. I mean, it's like it's like he was playing with them,
Yeah.
for a while. And
It's exactly right.
and it's just amazing. So anyway, it was an interesting time, but I agree with you. One of your former coaching colleagues, I guess, Rick Neuheisel, said this morning, and again, it's amazing how Georgia still becomes the afterthought. Yeah, Georgia's punched it. Yeah, they're in. But wow, that Georgia USC matchup, Georgia always has problems with. It's like, did they not watch the Tennessee game? I mean, Georgia may have issues, but Georgia tends to rise to the level of who they're playing.
That is a true statement. They play great against the great teams, which is good. Now it gives some heart palpitations in some of those other games, but
Yeah.
it is great as far as them being able to play to a very high level when they need to, and that's been impressive thus far.
Oh, I agree. And again, it is like you. I mean, and I heard this the other day, and I like from your coaching eyes. Okay, I watched the Kentucky-Georgia game, and as much as it was a close game, I never got the feeling Georgia was in trouble. It was always just, I mean, Kentucky was there, but Georgia was never in trouble. You saw it in the Vandy game a little bit. Is that what you sensed as well, that Georgia just sort of some of these games that they don't really get picked up for, they just sort of sleepwalk through a little bit?
Yeah, they don't play, and it's hard to play at an extremely high level week after week. That is very difficult. The great teams win when they don't have their best game.
Right.
And that's that you find that in all levels, whether it's high school, college, or pro. That the team that can go out there and play pretty good and still win is a very good football team.
Okay. Totally off the field for a second. We're going to chase, as we like to do, we chase rabbits a little bit. All right, here's my rabbit for the day. When are they just going to name the Heisman Trophy the best quarterback in the country?
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
I mean, it's today I was listening over the last weekend and saw, Caleb Williams has got to be the best athlete in college. No, he's not. Yeah. I mean, the best player. It's just become a quarterback battle. When did that? I mean, running back, quarterback now. Is it just understood that that's the way it's going to be?
Well, what has happened is they have to have statistics to back up their decisions. Right. It doesn't have anything to do with who the greatest athlete, who has the most impact on their good team. It is who has the great statistics that they can throw out there. And a DB that intercepts 10 passes, 12 passes in the season, won a game, is still not going to get named because he doesn't have they can't throw that statistic up there and everybody goes, ooh, that's amazing. But they know quarterback statistics, so they can throw those up there.
Well, it is interesting because I think last year was what I get. Look, I'd sort of just resigned myself that it's quarterbacks and, maybe a wide receiver thrown in there or maybe a running back every once in a while. Years ago, but last year sort of got it for me. And I know you're, sort of the, in the trenches kind of coaching. It amazed me that the two defensive linemen from Michigan and then Will Anderson down from Alabama were number 2 and 3. What still amazed me that Anderson came in third. I don't understand that. He's fell off a little bit this year, but it is so statistic driven that it makes it a quarterback or an offensive award. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they drives them, and they have to be able to justify it. So it's easy for them. That's an easy pick for them. It's tough to vote for that guy that may be the better player like Aiden Hutchinson last year.
Right. Well, it is interesting. All right, let's get back to college here for a little bit. We got I'm just curious because I don't think I've ever asked you this. What is your feelings about the championship games? I mean, now it seems like everybody just sort of blowing them off a little bit. Now they used to mean something, and then you got the looming 12-game playoff, which we get into later. But what do you, if you're a coach like Kirby Smart going into this game, what's your thoughts?
Well, you're trying to win the conference. Winning the conference is important. I don't care who you are, where you are, what conference you're in. Winning the conference. I mean, Troy and Coastal are getting ready to play for their conference championship. It's important. Right. I don't care what they say. It's important that you win your conference. That's a big deal for the alumni, for the kids, for everybody. When it's got a championship by it, the name championship beside it, then you want to do it.
Right.
So to me, you go play, it's all out. And you don't know who you're going to play anyway in a month. So put all your eggs in this basket.
Well, that's going to be interesting. Is it true? And I heard this today, and I wasn't sure it was true. Does the higher seeds get to pick which, but like the number one get to pick which of the playoff sites they want? So, like if Georgia comes out, like most believe it will happen, they'll be number one pick. That they get to pick the Peach Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl. Do they get a choice in that?
I don't know if they do or not. They, if they're smart, they would pick. If Georgia's in it, to put them in the Peach Bowl because it'll sell out.
Oh, exactly.
So it's that's a big deal, because I know a lot of people a couple years back, they had a choice to go to the SEC championship or to the first playoff or to the national championship, and a lot of people didn't go to the first playoff, thinking they were going to win and saving their money to go to the national championship. So you'd rather people not have to pick.
Yeah, it is interesting. All right, as it stands now, and this will come out a little bit later, so we got some things to think about here. The picking, it looks like right now, is probably going to be at least we know for a fact the top two, Georgia and Michigan. You got TCU floating out there. You now got USC floating out there. And then just off the map a little bit, you got Ohio State and Alabama, depending on how they look. I think Alabama may end up going a point higher than Ohio State, even with 2 losses, just because I think several things. But if you're in this, and again, I bring an SEC bias to this. I bring another bias. I get it. Michigan and Georgia right now have shown they're where they're at and need to be. The TCU barely winning, although they win, I credit greatly to the fact that they're 12-0. That's not easy to do. I don't care what league you're in. But is there that drop off from a coaching perspective? You're looking at it, if you're in the SEC and then comparing teams in the Pac-12, the Big 12, and some of these others, that they're striving so hard to be recognized. But yeah, there is a drop off.
Well, there's a difference in conferences. There's a difference in level of competition. That has been proven through the years. Okay. Yep. The SEC has been the strongest conference. The Big Ten has been right there. I don't know which one you say, but I would say overall the SEC is stronger than top to bottom than the Big Ten. But you have level of competition from 1 through 12 or 14 or how many ever you have that's really, really good in both of those. Not so in the other conferences. You don't have that level of competition from top to bottom. So you only have to get up to play 3 or 4 ball games a year in those other conferences. And so I would have to say that I know you're biased, but I'm still one of those that believes if somebody goes 12-0, you put their fanny in there, and they got to go 13-0. They got to go beat Kansas State again.
Oh, exactly.
Which is not going to be a piece of cake. But if they win that one and they're 13-0, they deserve to be in, no question.
Yeah, the hypnotoad needs to be there at that point. I agree. And Sonny Dykes has done. I mean, I can remember last year, all the discussions, trading the coaches and Sonny Dykes going to TCU, and but he's done a great job. I mean, they've had a great season. They have.
They've done a great job, and the quarterback has played. Dugan, I think is his name, has played really good. He is. That's a fun team to watch to me, because they're never out of it in their mind.
No, they're not. But something, and let's for the podcast listeners, let's compare Georgia and Michigan. Very similar. Okay, different little bit styles, but very similar. Hard nose, run, pass, more pro style. What you see on Sundays.
Yeah.
TCU, USC. Let's take the 3 and the 4. More than likely, right now, as we're looking at it, are all offense, no defense for the most part. And it's amazing to me as you were hearing these conversations. If you sort of look back over the last few years, it is the all offense, no defense teams that you typically have had trouble in the first round of the playoff. because they've hit an Alabama, a Georgia, they've hit an Ohio State, they've hit those that. And it seems like we don't get that out of our head because the Pac-12 has not played defense in probably 25 years, and the Big 12 never understood the concept of defense. So, but the others. So, does that put them at a disadvantage? I mean, going into these games with the teams like a Michigan, a Georgia, and I'll even say an Alabama and Ohio State for that matter.
Yeah, great defenses still give you a better chance to win championships than great offenses. That's just been proven from, I think, back in Green Bay Packers day one. I think that's been the case. Great defense wins, and that's true in high school football too. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's true all the way. Great defenses that can tackle and run and hit, like we see every week in the SEC. It's amazing to see what goes on there, and there's no letdown. You might miss a tackle, but there's two other guys there.
Oh yeah.
On offense, if you miss a pass, there's nobody else there.
Yeah.
So that's great. Offenses can be shut down.
Exactly. Let's take a specific game here, because I want to get into this because. For the number of years, and I don't care how long, what they said, 8 years in a row, this is Michigan, Ohio State. But with the no playing in 2020, they 19, they haven't, Day really is just getting into this rivalry. I mean, he's not been there in it. And it looks like, at least for the last 2 years, I mean, and especially this year, Michigan just went in and beat them. I mean, it wasn't a game. It wasn't, hey, this is a fluke. Harbaugh seems to have changed the dynamic in this rivalry. What do you see there? I mean, because Harbaugh, remember 2 years ago, if you and I were talking on this podcast, it was Harbaugh's out, Harbaugh's going to get cut. They're talking, and now, I mean, he's heading to the playoffs for the second year in a row and beat Ohio State for the second year in a row.
I think Coach Harbaugh has done an unbelievably great job of changing the toughness mindset of his football team. They believe they can win. They believe they're tougher. They believe they're better, and they play that way now compared to 3 or 4 years ago when they were just going out there and trying to out-athlete everybody. They've now gotten some tough football players that can run around and knock the dog out of you, and they are playing with a mindset that they're tougher than you are, and mentally and physically tougher than you are. And I praise him for that.
Yeah. Look, I think Day, coach at Ohio State, is a good coach. I mean, he's had the record in the big, again, I'm sort of like you. When you're only playing 2 to 3 games, I mean, think about it. Ohio State does not wake up at the beginning of the year and say, ooh, I got to worry about 6 games this year. No, I'm worried about Penn State. I'm worried about Michigan, and then just not letting down enough against, say, an Indiana or Maryland to lose. Georgia, on the other hand, they've got about 4 or 5 games. I mean, Florida, on any occasion, who knows who shows up and can play well. You got South Carolina, who just took down 2 top 10 teams back to back. You've got Kentucky. You got the cross country rivals of Mississippi State. Again, just such a different mentality. I still think he's a good coach. I'm not sure how he would do it in other places, but Harbaugh outcoached him Saturday. I mean, you look at the different play calling. I mean, it was just Ohio State was off balance the whole time.
Yeah, they were ready for the ball game. I think Ohio State thought that they had them at home, and they started out a little fast, and they thought, okay, well, it's over like the other games we play. We get a lead, and everybody else just wilts. Well, Michigan didn't wilt. Michigan stood in there and matched them, shot for shot in the first half, and then just, ran over them in the second half.
Yeah. Well, and that's become what we've talked about here is you take Michigan, you take Georgia, both teams, and again, and I've sort of called the which Georgia shows up. Again, and I think really it honestly depends on the opponent. But we've seen this in Georgia for 30 years. For those of us longtime Georgia fans, how many years, even under back to Dooley, did you watch them play, a top 5 school and win, and then the next week against William and Lee, William and Mary, they're playing, a 1 touchdown game. I mean, it's just happened a lot. But it's that wearing down. And here's a statistic. I don't know if you knew. You probably did. I didn't know, but I heard the other day that Georgia's offensive line, their 1 and 2s, are all sophomore under a junior. They're no seniors.
Yeah. Well, they've had some great linemen through the years, and somebody's doing a great job of that line because they have taken those young guys and played very well. They've played very well together, and they keep them coming at Georgia. I'll give them credit. They keep them there, and they keep them growing, and those guys end up getting to become high draft choices. That's a great offensive line place right now.
Kirby, and just a statement, do you think Kirby Smart doesn't get enough credit for what we've talked about before that I think was a Saban quality? You've coached your other, is that growing up of players that they came in, say, as a 4, and the coaching and others helped them be a 4.5 or a 5, even a 5. Do you think, because I've watched this lately, and it wasn't true for years. Mark Richt could recruit very well, but whatever they came in at, they seemed to just sort of stay there. Kirby seems to have the opposite effect. When you look at a McConkey, you look at a Stetson Bennett, you look at some of those offensive linemen, defensive back walk-ons. This kind of – is that something that's began to, in my mind, sort of signify the Kirby Smart coaching?
Yeah, well, what they've done is they've set a standard, and they're not gonna accept less than that standard. And if a guy is a 4 or 5 star and he comes in there and he won't meet that standard, then he realizes he's not going to play because he's not willing to get better. They're going to play the guys that are willing to get better and be the best they can be by the time they get through playing at Georgia. And if a guy doesn't want to do that, he ain't going to play at Georgia.
Well, I think that's been epitomized no better than by the quarterback Stetson Bennett. Just, you make it, you do it, you're going to play. I can't wait for our conversations in the spring when we start talking about and this is going to be an interesting conversation, the new quarterback at Georgia. Georgia, it's going to be interesting as we go. But we do have a kid from North Georgia that actually going to be competing for that. It's going to be
from
good.
Raven County.
Yeah, Raven County in the house. We look at it. Let's move on a little bit outside the top 4. We talked about a little bit. In your opinion, the job at South Carolina, that coaching staff and others in a late season in which your season was basically gone, Shane Beamer has taken and somehow got that team up to put a whooping on Tennessee and to beat Clemson at Clemson. You got to give some credit there. 8-4 season.
Tons of credit. And, if you had been 8-2 and lost your last 2, everybody would have said, shoot, what an awful season. We had a chance to have a great season. But you're 6-4 and you win the last 2 games the way they won them.
Yep.
Now everybody thinks it's a great season. But 8-4 is 8-4.
Exactly.
But the key is what you said. They played their best ball at the end of the year. And to me, that gives a lot of credence to the coaching staff, to Shane, to the job that they did, because it would have been easy for them to fold in those last 2. It would have been. But I think they finally figured out what Rattler can do. They finally figured out how to make him, be the best player he could be. And that has been really good and is going to pay dividends for them.
I know a friend of yours, one we've talked about before, but you do still have to revisit the question. We're still in South Carolina, but we're over at the other school, at Clemson. Does Dabo reconsider his opposition to the transfer portal and other stuff after this year?
Sure he does. He has to. I think he's going to be very selective, but I think he will. I think he'll do that, and I think that he's got he's smart enough to realize that is the way of the future, right. And he may not. that you won't see 10 coming in there, but this year you might see 3 or 4 that they believe are their kind of people and that can play in their kind of system and do what they want to do.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting for Dabo to do that. I mean, because I saw a graphic at the beginning of the year. There are only 3 teams that didn't, and they were all academy teams. It's like
and Clemson.
The 4 teams, 3 were academy teams who can't take transfer portal kids, and then you got Clemson in there. Real quick, tying up the football side of it in the house for a little bit. First year coaches, I mean, I know from your perspective in your home, Florida, give me your impressions of Napier's first year.
I wish I had a good word. I wish I had a good word for it. That they played good sometimes, played bad sometimes, but never played great.
Right.
The greatest game they had was against Utah early in the year. No. When they beat them at home, and that was early in the season. And there you go back to your thing on the Pac-12.
Right.
Utah comes, who is one of the best teams out there, comes to Florida and gets beat, who's a mid-level at best SEC team this year.
Yeah.
So, I think he probably learned a lot coming from Louisiana to here to Florida, that there's a big difference in SEC football. And I know he's had a taste of it, but being the head coach, he's going to have some work to do. And now he's got to fight not only SEC, he got to fight Florida State big time.
Oh yeah, Florida State's made a resurgence.
They've made a big resurgence, and that guy's done a very good job down there. And so it's going to be. He's got more to fight than just the SEC now.
Well, exactly. And the Florida State coach, remember he actually did 3 years. It's been sort of quiet. 3 wins the first year, 5 and 8. I mean, so he's built it back up like you think you should as you go. Couple of quick coaching, then I want to talk recruiting before we get to just a few minutes on pro. Coaching issues. Matt Rule just announced went to Nebraska. There is, I do believe, you've coached at both levels, so you have a very different perspective here. There's this saying that there are pro coaches and there are college coaches. Rule has at least tag because of what happened in Carolina as a college coach. And how do you think that fit is going to be at Nebraska?
Well, I think it's probably the best they could do right now. I think Matt is a very good college football coach, really good college. What he did at Temple, what he did at Baylor, I mean, that was exceptional. And I think that'll carry over to Nebraska. I don't know how you recruit to Nebraska big time unless they got a boatload of money up there, and that's how they end up getting them with the NIL deals. But that's a tough place to recruit right now.
Yeah, exactly. Take a kid from Georgia or Florida and Alabama, and you want to go play in Nebraska in the cold. Yeah. Nobody is there. Yeah, that's a hard sell right now. As you get it. But also on a side note, before I get to my other question here on coaches, Coach, if you really want to consider this, I got a little time on my hands. I can work as an agent. The coaching contracts right now, I mean, hey, we might want to consider this here. Retirement.
The contracts are really nice right now.
I mean, 7 years, 8 years right off the bat for Rule. I mean, he's just getting a $40 million payout out of Carolina. It's like amazing. Yeah. Here's we go. Another coach on the hot seat. Looks like he will survive, especially since he won his last game this year. Although I think a lot of people would not want to see it. Jimbo Fisher, how do you even begin? I mean, everybody has a bad year, but this one takes on seemingly a more dynamic. That this was a lot of bads at Texas A&M, and it seems to start with Fisher. I mean, I don't know what else you can describe this with.
Yeah, there's not a word to describe this except devastating, because everything about this, the hype surrounding their recruiting class, it started with that, the hype surrounding the recruiting class. Then all of a sudden, their quarterback doesn't play very good. And then You look at all the things that happened to them during the year. I mean, they lost some bad games and didn't look good losing them. I mean, they looked bad losing, and so he's going to survive because it's hard to pay out that 10-year contract they signed him to, and I think you got to give him at least a chance to take these great recruits if they stay.
Well, that's going to be the question. That's going to be the question. Do you think they'll stay?
I don't know. The NIL deals now have, if it was just transfer portal, they might not. But the NIL deals might have them committed there just a tad longer.
Well, it goes back to now contracts, except they don't have the free agency. And I mean, it's like a wilder free agency than in the pros. At least pros have some parameters on when they can leave and when they can't. College doesn't. I mean, if you make your $1 million this year, they're going to give you $2 million down the road. You're going to go $2 million down the road, and there's no allegiance to the university anymore. We've talked about this in a previous podcast.
Oh gosh, don't get me off on the loyalty aspect. There is no loyalty.
All right, let's speak into this. How important is this last few weeks for recruiting in these colleges? I mean, the championship games, the last game, the rivalry games, coming into the playoffs, the bowls. Is this really I know you've been doing it all year, but is this really the crunch time for recruiting?
Yes and no, because what recruiting are you talking about? Recruiting your own players, recruiting the transfer
actually
players,
both now,
or the high school player?
Yeah,
but to me, the high school player is kind of that's almost done. There's a few that are out there, but that's almost done at this point. There'll be a few kids here in the next couple of weeks that'll make a decision, but and there'll be some big names in there. But recruiting your own kids, making sure you got who's in the transfer portal and how you want to develop, your team, who's leaving your team.
Right.
I mean, there are so many dynamics. You got to hire a whole nother staff just to keep up with all of that anymore. In college, the cost of staff are going through the roof for these colleges because they have to keep up with all this.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see as it goes. There's no longer just that one, okay, here's signing day, we're going to find out. I mean, now you got recruiting your own players, recruiting the portal. And let me ask you this, because I've never really asked this, and it just came up as I was listening to you talk. How do like in NFL, there's rules that say if I'm Arthur Blank at the Falcons, I just can't pick up the phone and call Jimmy DeGrappolo out there and say, hey, you want to come to Atlanta? I can't do that.
Right.
What's the rules for Kirby picking up and calling one of those defensive backs out of Texas A&M and say, hey, you want to come here?
Yeah, I think there are rules against being the first to initiate.
Okay.
The kid has to opt into the transfer portal first.
Okay.
Then once he opts into the transfer portal, and I could be wrong about this, but that's the way I understand it.
That would make sense. Sense. Okay, let's turn quickly to the pros. Pros, it's almost like they had their exhibition season in September, and for many teams, they forgot that it was actually over. Two of your old programs, Dallas, Buffalo.
Yeah.
Why do you? I'm just curious. I just love your angle. Dallas, to me, has played a little bit over their head. They've had a little softer schedule, but they played over their head. Buffalo, though, what's the struggle with Buffalo right now?
The bottom line is Josh Allen's not playing as good as he has in the last couple of years, and I'm not worried about him, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be there at the end. They'll play strong. Now, I'm not sure they'll win the division, because of Miami being there, and Miami has already beaten them. So that's going to be that'll be interesting to see how it goes the rest of the year between those two. But Buffalo will get in, and nobody will want to play them when they get in. Dallas, they happen to play in the division with Philadelphia, who seems to be just on a tear right now. They are so hard to stop at this point. And they'll get in, and they'll be a team you don't want to play. Their defense is better than they've been playing. their defense is pretty dang good.
Wow.
I think they'll play. I think they'll play better and better as the season winds toward the end.
I know you've had some, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I think as the season's progressed, you've got a lot of contact still here. I think Miami is the untold story right now. Nobody's talking about Miami, but they're where they're at with their record. They're winning. Tua has actually played better since he came back from a concussion. Is that continuing, or is there a flaw in the Miami that you see?
No, I don't see. The only flaw they have a little bit is their defense right now. And if you can slow down that offense with those two great receivers and Tua, if you can slow down the offense a little bit, it'll be interesting to see. Again, great defenses in the NFL will eventually, make the difference. And that's where there's a few people like the Philadelphias. Yeah, they've got a great offense, but that defense is really good. People overlook defense. They look at offensive statistics. Offense sells tickets. Offense draws ratings, but defense is what's going to win for you in the end.
I understand. All right, for my producer, who is an absolute Vikings fan, let's turn our attention to Minnesota. Is Kirk Cousins the reincarnation of Kurt Warner?
No, he is not. But he is a really good quarterback, and they're gonna win the division going away. That's not an issue. We all know that. But the question is, how far can they go in the playoffs? And if they can get it all together and get everybody healthy, they'll make a decent run. I don't know if they can get all the way to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of good football teams out there, but if you have to go into Philadelphia and play outside in January, that's a tough place to play now. That is a nasty place to play, actually.
It is. Speaking of, and let's talk about that for a second. NFC East is playing above their rating, so to speak. I mean, with Dallas, New York, Philadelphia, Washington. I mean, I don't think anybody at the beginning of the year would have expected all of them to be at least where they are. And then you've got the dumpster fire called the NFC South.
Yes.
I mean, the leading the division is Tom Brady at 5-7, the Falcons at 5-8, I think it is. Yeah. No, 5-7. We're 5-7, they're 5-6. And then you got 2 4-8 teams. You got the Saints and the Panthers at 4-8. I mean, you talk about a dumpster fire. I mean, This is bad.
Oh, and it happens like that. It seems like every year there's somebody that wins the division with a 8-8 or a 7-8-1 or something like that, something crazy, but there's 17 games now. I keep forgetting that. So,
70. Well, I mean, but you're at 12 games. I mean, if somebody have to get on a heater to actually win this, and I think we talked about this. The prediction is that whoever wins the South will have a losing record.
It could easily happen.
Oh yeah, very much. It
could easily happen. So
I didn't realize this, but the coach of the Falcons' dad started FedEx.
Oh yes,
I didn't realize that.
Oh really?
And he went to coach football instead of FedEx.
You got to be the only person that didn't know that, Doug.
Yeah, I was after it. It's because I don't pay attention to him enough. Because honestly, everything I've heard about the guy seems to be nice. But you look at him on the sidelines, and he's like the math coach that got called in to do the extra coaching assignment because nobody else would coach the team.
Well, let's don't go by looks on the sideline, because that guy down at Miami looks like he did come out of a math class not long ago.
I agree. But I mean, I just get the feeling though the Falcons have played better than. I mean, again, there's only so much you can say if you're 5-7 to say that you played well. But I mean, you get to the 1 yard line yesterday, and you can't punch it in, and you throw an interception. I mean, it happens, but it's like there's just not aggressiveness there.
Yeah, it's let me tell you, 3rd and 1 in the NFL is it is so hard.
It is.
It is so hard, but good teams. Good teams score in those situations, and bad teams don't.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Exactly. All right. Before we get gone, and we get that, we'll be back again, folks. We're gonna get we'll get toward the end of the playoffs we in the playoffs, and then also the beginning of playoffs with pros, and we'll have Coach back. But right now, give me your 4 playoff teams. And granted, we're before Championship Sunday, but give me your 4 playoff teams for college, and then your odds-on favorite right now for the 2 teams in the Super Bowl.
I go with the top 4 everybody's got right now: Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC. Okay. I think those will be the 4 in it when all's said and done. And the 2 teams in the Super Bowl, I have a hard time picking against Kansas City,
right?
Being there, and Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. All right. Folks, this is why you love this show with Coach, and I hear so many comments on having Coach on. We just get to talk about football, talk about the questions everybody talks about around the table, and Coach, it's so great to be here. Coach, great to have you on. We'll be back here in a few weeks to do this again, to talk about how it's all ending up. But great insights as always. Go out and have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Always great to be with you, Doug.
All right, take care. All right, folks, that's it for the podcast. We'll see you again next week. Hey everybody, MyPillow. I just wanted to let you know MyPillow is having the biggest sheet sale of the year. You have all helped build MyPillow into an amazing company that it is today. And now Mike Lindell, the inventor and CEO, wants to give back exclusively to his listeners. The Percal bed sheet set is available in a variety of colors and sizes, and they're all on sale. For example, the queen size is regularly priced at $89.98, but it is now only $39.98 with our listener promo code. Order now, because when they're gone, they're gone. You're not going to be able to get it. These Percal sheets are breathable. They have cool, crisp feel. They come with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Don't miss out on this incredible offer. There's a limited supply, so be sure to order now. Call 1-800-986-3994. Use the promo code Collins, COLLINS, or you can go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, and use the promo code Collins, COLLINS. Lisa and I sleep on these sheets every night. You will want to have them as well. They're a wonderful product. Go right now, either 800-986-3994, code word Collins, or go to mypillow.com. Also use the code word Collins to get this discount. You will not regret it.